While more than half of our league is still in Kenya, if you are not in Kenya, you are scattered liberally throughout the world. If you happen to be one of those in Europe, as I am, the Christmas market started. And if you know that, the Christmas markets do trigger a few other things. Number one, for the US people, it means it's almost turkey time. Happy almost Thanksgiving. Do pay attention to that, and I talk about that in the next segment because that is going to impact our NFL schedule. But it also means the playoff push for fantasy football really starts. This week was a massive one with some huge implications. We had some people changing playoff spots, and we have a new overall number one seed as of right now. So that's pretty exciting. Before we get to the league stuff, though, let's just talk quickly about some stuff that happened in the NFL in Week 11. With every week that goes by, I think, all right, I've talked enough about a couple coaches I don't like, and mostly quarterbacks and how crazy that's been this year. Next week, normally by now we're talking about like a wide receiver upstart, and we've had a couple of them, or running back issues and how many backups we have. But once again, when I recorded this last week, at the time of recording, we didn't know as much about Watson, but the AFC North had all four starting quarterbacks from the start of the year ready to go. Fast forward 1 week, we know Watson was out leading into it. Now we know Burrow's out. That's two. Lamar Jackson left the game limping. Now, I've heard he's supposed to play, but I don't think limping is great. And Kenny Pickett, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was winning games, had one pass that went over the first down marker, longer than 10 yards in the entire first half of last week's game. I don't really know what to deal with that. I did do some math here, and so because I have to just repeat what I said at the beginning, coaches, quarterbacks, we're doing it again. We're kicking it back this week, although I'm going to do it a lot shorter. I've been going a lot longer the last couple weeks. But I can't help it. Staley, Chargers coach, I don't know if you've seen the press conference. Go watch it. Or stop asking about it. I can't believe that you can just do that. Now, granted, the media is not your boss, but to say that public favor doesn't influence some of these decisions, we know that's not true. Sometimes it is easier to sell your tickets to fans and to ease things with a coach who can at least playfully insult the media in a funny Bill Belichick way. And if you're winning, obviously, in the NFL, no one cares. That they've made that painfully clear with all of the other off-the-field issues they like to skirt aside. But when you're losing, and you're the person who calls the defensive plays, and you're losing often because of your defensive calls, I think it's hilarious that you can just say, so stop asking me. I wish I could do that. If I don't show up on time and my classes just start and my boss is like, what happened? I'm like, hey, stop asking me. I had a morning. Well, actually, I do know a colleague that used to do that. She didn't last the whole year, but still, she did try it. So maybe it's not actually that unreasonable. But going into our quarterbacks, doing some quick math, unless I'm wrong, and this could be 50-50, because as the time of recording, not all starting quarterbacks for the upcoming week have been called. I can guarantee 19 to 21 of the opening day starting quarterbacks are actually starting this week. That means anywhere from about maybe 11 to possibly as many as 14 starting quarterbacks in week 1 are starting by week 12. Now, some of them are by choice, okay, because they're not doing so hot. Some, obviously, and most are by injury. Now, one of the big ones we had in terms of the Jets, I mentioned already the NFC North, so I'm not including them on the list. There was a couple people who got rocked, and then the Jets who just, confidence-wise, Wilson, our mother lover, got rocked. So it's just been named a little while back. Tim Boyle will be their starting quarterback. Remember, Aaron Rodgers was their starting quarterback and is still now apparently sending videos to teammates about his workouts and how cool he is. But now in the two New York teams, a massive media market for any sport, but obviously football, we've got the guy from Goodfellas and now the detective from Brooklyn Nine-Nine in Boyle. Interesting strategy, New York. You do you. Not that he could do much worse, though, as someone who had Garrett Wilson at least one of his pools, who ended up in the negatives. And if you watch, it's not like he was not open. You got to try something. I'd say the other one that I'd say is 50-50. The Pats have said they're sticking with their mediocre guy, which really does show that they want Mac Jones in there just to lose a couple more games and really cement the idea that they could get a top 2 or 3 pick. So good for you, Belichick. Seattle, as of right now, Geno Smith, I think, is expected to play. But if you actually watch that game, I don't understand how anyone could physically get hit harder by a person and not have it be by a truck. Go look it up. He just got rocked so hard that, I mean, I know we know that the football is, the rules favor the quarterback. It's a lot harder to hit them. And there's these touch roughing the passer calls. This is the hardest hit I think I've seen a quarterback take in recent memory without it being a flag. He just got completely flattened. And I don't know if it's legal or not legal, but I'm surprised he's up. Apparently he was out for a while. I think he got back in the game. So I imagine he'll keep rolling, although the running back in Seattle, not so much. So that poses a good, an interesting proposal. I will get on to next week's matchups more than I normally do, just because there's so many different ones. But I did want to, because this is being recorded and hopefully will be out on the Tuesday. That's November 21st, but maybe I need an extra day to do the editing. Sometimes it takes me a while, folks. I did actually get up and did that thing where the first half of the Monday Nighter had already happened, and I just went back and watched it and then fast forwarded, the in-between commercial bits, because I really wanted to see. I mean, this is a return of the Super Bowl from last year. We had Chiefs at home against the Eagles. Massive fantasy implications for this week. So many matchups came down to this morning/night, depending on your time zone. And I wanted to see what was going on. And I have to say, it was raining, so that is going to bring things down. But it was fine. I don't think it was worth getting up for, which does not bode well for the Super Bowl. I hope it gets a little bit better, but it kind of just made me sad. And not the tush push. That is frustrating that they could just rugby play it. And it's obviously not illegal. You can't make it illegal, but I just don't know what you do aside from just hit someone with a chair just repeatedly. It does not help. And if you look at sports like FanDuel, if you're the kind of person who wagers, I don't think it helps Hurts' MVP odds, because so many of his rushing touchdowns aren't really him. It's just his line, and they just spear him in. I mean, obviously he's physically strong enough to handle it, but not super impressive. The Chiefs suck, man. I don't know who's been watching the Chiefs so much this year. Now, full disclosure, in a keeper league, I've had Mahomes since he started, since he was a rookie. So I always have a soft spot, even in most of my leagues where I don't end up having him. But he used to be super fun to watch. And he ran around. He was like a kid playing. But you realize it's because he had people to throw it to. Go and look at some of the drops. Not just the big drop from MVS at the end when he bobbled the game-winning touchdown. That was a tough pass. And in the rain, that can be kind of tricky. He should have still caught it, obviously. And the Chiefs should have won. But they didn't. And that's okay. So many people over the middle. So many people running weird routes. I don't know, just for people who like watching football, can we all throw $20 in? And if there's a million of us, 20 million should be able to buy a receiver or two from Mahomes, shouldn't he? Isn't the NFL more fun when they just have a fun offense? How many more years is Mahomes going to have in his prime? Can we get him a receiver, please? Anyone? Someone help Kelsey out too? I don't know. Anyway, on to next week. Week 12 is going to be an interesting one. Fantasy-wise, I'll talk about that later. But just for those who celebrate and for U.S. people who like putting turkey in their mouths, happy almost Thanksgiving. And with Thanksgiving, as someone who does not tend to celebrate American Thanksgiving unless I'm invited to a free meal, what it does bring is awesome football. So, football. Let's hold on the awesome. We'll see how that goes. So for those who don't know, the Thursday schedule is already set. Our midday game, which is quite nice. We get an earlier game here on this side of the pond. It's Green Bay at Detroit. Then we got our slightly later game if you want to stay up a little bit later on. I think about 10:30 my time, so you can do the adjustment. Washington at Dallas, and then the night game on Thursday, San Francisco at Seattle. And then for the first time, if you haven't paid attention, there is a new one this year. They're doing a Black Friday game. They figure once people are tired of shopping, so it's midway through the day. I think it's 4:30 Eastern time or 3:30 Eastern time. Now I can't remember. It's one of those two. Look it up. We got Miami at, wait for it, the Jets. Not the game they thought they were getting when they put this in the regular season schedule. I can guarantee it. They thought this would be like a AFC East sling fest, not a Jets defense who's surprisingly good, Miami's Dolphins offense, which is obviously good, and then Jets offense, which is obviously not. Do have some interesting one, though. The Sunday Nighter is going to be Baltimore at the Chargers, which if you like watching Staley quotes, let's just keep the Chargers in at prime time just so we can all get to watch the horrible calls and the post-game reactions. And then, which you wouldn't think would be entertaining, but Fields is heading into the Dobb Stoppers Field in Minnesota for our Monday Nighter, so it should be interesting. No bye week, so we got tons of options, which we're going to need because we're getting down to it, regardless of the league that you're in. We only got a couple weeks left at this stage. The playoff races are getting tighter. Everything is kind of mattering in terms of your positions, who you're picking, who you're putting in, what do the matchups look like. So, before we look ahead to Week 12, let's reflect on what happened in Week 11. In real sports, they say now is the time that people come together, make big plays on the field. Hey, it's fantasy sports, but we still got to make big plays at the right time. And for Kent, that means another 200 plus week. Remember, he had a run of these at the start of the year or at different points throughout the year. He's been not maybe the most consistent player, but when he scores big. When he has scored, it's been Fields who came back and returned. This makes him a big threat. Allen has been pretty consistent for him. Then you got Hill and Dallas's defense. When all of them are pumping, he's pretty tough to beat. Hill was our wide receiver 3. Gus the Bus just outside of the top 5. In some formats, he was someone who cracked it, not in this one. Same with Allen, was just out of the top 5 in Field. So you're not looking at a lot of necessarily ones that did crack the top 5, but a lot of double-digit performances, and that all adds up. Now, his defense did just behind Buffalo's defense 2, Dallas defense 3. We take a look just at the bench. He didn't leave a whole lot on there. Sutton might have been nice for him, but he certainly didn't need it. As opposed to our top seed, Connor and Seamus, and you notice no longer our top seed. We'll get to the new top seed, I think, in the next matchup, but Connor and Seamus fall to number 2. They did leave Ridley on the bench, which kind of burnt them. I don't know if he makes up the whole difference. In fact, I do know that he doesn't make up the whole difference. So you got to at least be happy to see that their offense started to flow. I don't know if that makes your decisions easier or harder next week. Your running backs sure didn't let you down, though. Again, they did not necessarily crack the top 5, but they were giving you solid points. Can't be mad about that. If you also look, Murray coming back is going to be a huge addition for you. Paka Nakua, you got to be happy with the fact that he's starting to get the ball a little bit more. Either way, though, it's not like you just fell over and rolled over on this one. 150 was just above your predicted. You did have some significant underperformance as well, but I'd rather get that out of the way before the playoffs start. We only got a couple weeks left, so you do have a chance to still regain that top spot, but number 2 still puts you in the playoffs and still puts you in the driver's seat. Kent, you're on the outside looking in, but you keep putting up 200 points. I don't think you have a whole lot to worry about. And speaking of our top seed, Gene did not score the overall top this week as he has for a bunch of the last few weeks, but he did score the second highest, which is still pretty good, and he now becomes our belt-carrying league leader. This is the hottest man in show business. The 2 streaks were playing each other in this particular matchup. Gene just stayed a little bit hotter. How did he do it? Well, by a bunch of performances that did actually crack the top 5, and then some that were just double-digit phenoms. He was our quarterback 3 in Herbert, the connection with Allen, who was our wide receiver 5. Tank Dell was our wide receiver 2, which was a little bit more of a surprise. Also, TJ didn't actually make the top 5 in tight ends. Rough week tight ends wise, but only 9 points there. Either way, if you kind of look, he had a few disappointments, but almost everybody's scoring in the double and a bunch of 20s. That's going to help push you through. If you look at his bench, he didn't leave a whole lot on the bench, although Reed was a good addition at the last minute there. He seems to be one of the few people in Green Bay that can put it together, so congrats there. Dibbler, some pluses and minuses. Obviously, unfortunately, you started off kind of slow, so you don't really have the latitude here. You do kind of have to go on a bit of another win streak to finish this year off, but you can feel pretty good. Purdy was actually our quarterback 2. Etienne was your big kicker. He was on such a decent run, and he just couldn't hang on. Kittle was our tight end 1, so you've definitely got some positives, but you have some issues. Geno Smith getting popped and then not really being able to come back right away. Charbonnet, though, Walker getting popped and not coming back in is going to help out your cause. We don't know what that looks like, but he might end up being a starting running back. So all is not lost, Jeff. You are still kind of in the go, but like I said, you got to put on a run. Gene, you're in the driver's seat. Let's see how far you can take it, pal. Anytime you can walk in and get the win, you're going to be happy. This was a bit tighter than I wanted, and I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little worried coming into today that there could be some miraculous performances, or I should say by the Monday Nighter. Dax did not do what he did for you last week, Rennie, so that did help me out. Although Ayuk was our wide receiver 4. Kelsey was our tight end 2. But obviously Burrow got popped, and that kind of ended your run. If Burrow doesn't go out, this could have really gone down to the wire and could have been super tight. You were dealing with a lot of injuries already and some bye issues, so you did overexceed. So well done there. I think it's sometimes tough to battle when you're put in those spots and you get the injuries early, but You stayed tough. You made me sweat it to the end. For me, I mean, I did have Walker go out with the injury, which sucked, especially moving forward, although we do have a little bit of depth in the running back, so I'm not sweating too hard. I did have some bye issues, mainly one team, but I should be okay. Realistically, I won this week because of my quarterbacks. I had Jackson, who was the quarterback 4, and Lawrence, who finally, even though I was thinking about cutting the idiot, I wasn't going to, but I was thinking about it. Finally had an outing that he was supposed to have all year in terms of at least the touchdown production. The 2 rushing touchdowns were nice. Screwed over Etienne and Dibbler, but helped me out with he was our quarterback 1. So I got to keep winning because this is going to stay tight. I've only really got like a game lead here on 4 and 5, so I got to keep pushing through. Rennie, to be honest with you, you might be mathematically out, but I know you're way too stubborn to roll over. So keep pushing forward, make this lead tight, and best of luck next week. In what could end up being a massive result, Max and Trips coming out of the gate. Marco oversees his predicteds, and Marco takes down Kent for his 3rd win of the year. I mentioned Green Bay, and a couple of receivers are doing well. That's all love on that one. So his 1 quarterback did hold true. I mentioned Adams and the funneled carries in some cases. Sometimes when you have a crap quarterback, it can go one of 2 ways. Either you get nothing and your production goes way down, or that quarterback, all they think of is just one thing, one person, and just feed it in. And it looks like that might be what's happening because he did get the 7 receptions and got his touchdown. So well done there. In other formats, Garrett Wilson actually was in the negative. So be happy, Marco. That's not this particular format. But obviously your receivers being fairly strong with Thielen. You're in that odd situation where no one really had that breakout week. You didn't get the 30-point or the high 20s. You didn't have anyone in the top 5 in any category as far as I know. But everyone just did okay except for pretty much Garrett Wilson. So if we take a look at your bench, you were dealing with some bye issues, so you got some people coming back. But you got to feel pretty good about pulling it together. And finally, Pollard did something that looked like a football game. Maxon, sorry, pal, you just had a series of underperformance. I think Burner going out really hurt your chase. Detroit, obviously scoring points, but wasn't Goff, so you didn't really get a lot of love there. McCaffrey was our running back 5, but for him, that's okay. But when you say McCaffrey and going off, I know you're going to want way more than that. Young had a horrible game against Dallas. Najee looked terrible. Brown did not have a great game. So you really just had a stinker. Now, sometimes you can put all of your stinkers in one week and then just move forward because, last week you dummied me. So I don't think you're sweating too much. You do have some options here on the bench. And, hey, you avoided the Gay Dave Bagel. So well done there. And the Lazard Bagel, but that's less surprising. So you got some work to do because now you fell out of the top 4. I think it's still pretty tight, though, between you and Woody, who we'll get to in literally just a second. He's our last matchup here. But let's see how things go. Keep it positive. Marco, well done, buddy. Let's even go on a little bit of a run to finish this year off. While neither team came close to their predicteds, one came kind of close and the other one not at all. Woody, you needed this win, buddy. You kind of tripped into it, but to get yourself in the top 4, you and Kent are pretty tight right now, so every point's going to matter, every matchup's going to matter. Now, how'd you do it? You probably were, if you were playing anyone else this week, you might have been sweating when Brown just couldn't do anything. Even Hurts and his tush push didn't look that great against Kansas City. Kansas City does have an underrated defense, though. However, this was the game you were waiting all year for Barkley. He was our running back 1. I think it's the first time he can say that. And actually, you had our tight end 5, which is a nice little treat. But your receivers certainly were leaving a lot of points on the table. But your quarterbacks did just enough, so you can't be too mad about that. You look at your bench. You did have some help here, so you do have options moving forward. And you had a pickup. Singletary was actually our running back 3, so it's kind of a mistake to leave him on the pine. He might end up being a league-winning or saving waiver wire pickup. Or it's Houston. Who knows? Maybe next week he'll suck. We can't really tell. Timmer, you had Warren on the bench, another person that could be a savior. He actually was our running back 2, so we get 2 versus 3 on the pine here. 1, 2, and 3 in our running backs in this game, so that's pretty exceptional. But the big one, you got to check at the last minute. Jefferson maybe was going to go in and then pulled himself out that game. Who knows? With you might have been camping in the middle of a bush or somewhere. But your 2 big guns here, Kupp and Jefferson, who in any other format and any other week might have won you a week, here they killed you, right? It combined 2.1 points. Throw in Boyd, and you had all 3 wide receivers for under 10. That's not really going to cut it. And it actually somehow made Matty's choices look okay. You didn't really have anyone that went off. No one in the top 5. Miami's defense, actually, I apologize, was our defense 4. So you did get one in there. But a lot of points still to be had. And for you, you're not quite out of it yet. So you're going to have to put on a bit of a run. But you're also going to have to check the games. Please, this week, remember, I'm going to mention it in the sign-off here, we got early games, so we got to make sure that you're doing your check beforehand. Jefferson might be back next week, but we still don't know. It's not confirmed, so I would check it out. Maddie, as of right now, you're in the playoffs. Weird week, but you got to be feeling good about that. Before we jump ahead to week 12, just a quick look at the table. I keep referencing it. So technically now, Connor, Seamus, and I are tied, but they've got me well beat on points. I would need them to fall again and me to jump up. We do have a bit of a hedge here on 4, but 4, 5, 6, 7, looks like there's only a couple games. Even Jeff, technically, you can still go on that run depending on who you play and how it works. And the real question, is anyone going to stop Gene's streak before we get to the playoffs, or is he just going to win out and pump it? Well, matchups will dictate this. So I am hoping that Kent goes from the high of 200 and he dips back down, but who knows with the Bears running. We'll see how it goes. Jeff's looking to continue against Connor here. We've got our 9 versus 10 loser leaves town matchup. We do have probably the keys here in the 4-5 match. So Gene is against Woody. Woody, this is not the time you want to be playing a guy in a 7-game win streak. Or maybe it is. Maybe he's already looking to the playoffs. Maybe he's looking past you. I don't know. Who knows what's in Gene's head, but I guess we'll find out. And your predicteds look pretty solid, so that should be a good matchup. And Tim, I would say Kent is probably definitely hoping that you just leave in every receiver and don't check until the end, so you could be doing him a favor. Or if you have some time this week, like I said, as you can see here, your guys are predicted to come back. Let's see how they do. You do have some talent on the bench. Maxon, you're going to need this win. Every win's going to count from here on out. If we take a look at our schedule, do pay attention to who you're playing against. But we do have 4. Oh, geez, I got Connor last. I'm not jumping. That might be really, really good or really, really bad. Let's see how that works. Anyway, 4 weeks left, so there is some mobility to be had. No one technically has clinched a playoff spot yet. You will know because they do have the nice little star. If so, I got to think if Gene wins, he's in. But I actually don't know. I think it depends on how she rolls. But all that to be said, as I said in the beginning, happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate. I do think you want to make sure you're checking Thursday, Friday. We already got a ton of games. That's 4 games before you even hit the weekend. So be paying attention to your ads and drops, etc. And as always, best of luck. Here we go, folks. It's the playoff push.